So welcome to our webinar, Galaxy Connect, what it is, why you need it, and how to get on board. And this is a webinar about Galaxy Connect specifically for the UK and European market. So it's for attractions and travel partners in the UK and Europe. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, this is just a regular event. If you're familiar with our Tuesday talks webinars, this is similar to that. So you do have your own control over muting or unmuting yourself or sharing your video or not sharing your video. So please feel free to do anything. The only thing I would ask is if you are going to mute or unmute yourself, please just watch your mute button to make sure that you're not unmuted when you don't know it. You can find the mute button at the very bottom of your screen. There's a big button that says mute. Or towards the right, if you see a list of attendees, the mute button is also to the right of your name there. So you can just press and unpress that. We do encourage you to ask questions. So if you want to just sort of jump in during a pause in the conversation and unmute yourself and ask a question, by all means, please feel free. We absolutely don't mind. However, you could also use the chat function if you don't want to actually speak your question. And the chat is right there on the right-hand side as well. You can just type your question and enter, and everyone will see the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the session, and I'll be feeding those questions to the team when the time is right. I'm just going to do a test question right now. I'm literally going to say test question. I'm going to chat that to everyone, and you should be able to see. So that's it really from a logistics perspective. Charlie, if you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Dominic. We'll just wait a second while Charlie switches to the next slide. I do want to introduce the team that's going to be presenting, and this is the Galaxy Connect team here at Gateway. So if you're interested in onboarding with Connect, either as a supplier, attraction, or a travel partner, distributor, you'll be working directly with this team. So on the call today, who will be presenting periodically, we have Wanda Kalbach from Gateway. She's the distribution partner manager. We also have Nell Smoyer. She's a supply partner manager. We have Chris Izzo, who's also a supply partner manager. And then we have Charlie Brochart, who's partner development manager and helps out the Connect team. And then we have myself, Greg Daniker, and I am in marketing. So everyone just give a wave hi. This is the team, and they'll be presenting, like I said, periodically. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Charlie, and we'll kick this off. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. So welcome everyone to our webinar today. Very exciting times, a lot going on around the world, everybody getting anxious to get reopened, so on and so forth. In Nashville, Tennessee, where I live, on 4th of July, they had 350,000 people downtown for the for the fireworks celebration. And it's interesting because I think it's one day everyone's wearing a mask, and the next day you go out and no one's wearing a mask. So as Boris Johnson calls this, the big gamble. So we'll see what happens. So Galaxy Connect, what it is, why you need it, and how to get on board. So what is Galaxy Connect? Well, I talked to my team a little bit about it, and during COVID, probably everybody's experiencing the similar things. I got to know my wife very well, even better over the last year, and especially my cats. And this is the way that they would sit and pretty much stare at me. Now, you could say it's because they want to eat, but when I asked them, I walked around the house, what is Galaxy Connect? What is Galaxy Connect? And they said, it's the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world, and just stared at me like cats are wont to do. But this is also what they're thinking inside, because when they said that, I said, it is the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. They went on and they said, you know, online, mobile first. This should all be part of your digital strategy. and Galaxy Connect is part of that. B2C, your consumer web store, what your guests are seeing, your B2B for your third-party sales, and then your B2B to C, which is Galaxy Connect. So again, online, mobile first, digital strategy, we're all getting ready for all of the pent-up demand that people have. Uh, I know in UK and Europe, in mid-July, I think all restrictions are going to be off. And we'll talk more about what's going on in a good way with the reopening. Uh, in the US, we've seen that pent-up demand. Everything is packed. All the airlines are packed. You can't go anywhere with things not selling out, so on and so forth. So there is that pent-up demand. And what my cats explained to me is that what we need to do is start to get ready or future-proof ourselves for what's going to come. So we got to nail down our digital strategy. Look at your online, look at your mobile, all of those types of things. Look at your third-party relationship. So again, it is probably the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. Now, if I didn't believe what my cat said, they threw some data at me. And they said, look at the data. They said before COVID, can we get people to use to buy online? What's our percentage of online? Well, it's 20%, 30%. It's always going up every year. But what we found out during COVID is that from this study from Deloitte, a global marketing study, they asked people about technology, that what they thought about it, and then using it after COVID. So on the left side, you see that people during COVID, they got more of an appreciation of technology, but they said that they really would prefer to use well-designed technology. So again, that's a marker. Look at your mobile solutions. What's the transaction flow or the guest journey for your visitors? If you're going online, what is it like? Your web store, your shopping cart, so on and so forth. And then on the right side, post-COVID, I think was even more important is the large amount of people that will use digital technologies versus prior to the outbreak. And prior to the outbreak, people uh, people ordered food online, but now everybody, these are like table stakes. Everybody knows how to buy online. We had the zoo night or the boo at the zoo in Nashville, and you couldn't get a ticket to that event unless you bought it online. And when you got to the venue, it was sold out, and they had one point of sale station for guest services greeting you. So we have all of our different sites looking at their point of sale. Do I need this many point of sale? Maybe I need self-serve kiosks, but again, online, online, online. So the learning curve that we always worried about with people using online, now guests expect to be able to do that. So again, the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. So what is Galaxy Connect? A cloud-based and award-winning solution for connecting attraction suppliers, which is the venues, to third-party distributors, travel partners, OTAs, to enable you to deliver a gate-ready live ticket to your guests. And the award we won was at IAPA. I think we might have been actually a two-time award winner. But from a perspective looking at Galaxy Connect, from a high-level perspective, if you see in the old way of doing things, this is the venue, and every venue would have to do a connection separately to every OTA. And that's a separate integration, separate integration, separate integration. This was a lot of overhead and time for the venues, but also for the OTAs to manage all of these different integrations. So the beauty of a Galaxy Connect, the problem that we solved is you just connect one time to Galaxy Connect, and now you have access to all of the distributors or the OTAs or the travel partners. And the OTAs, conversely, they connect once and they have access to all of the Galaxy venues. So it's in a sense, it's a beautiful thing. What else does Galaxy Connect help us with? It's reducing staffing hours, a reconciliation of vouchers. Think about in the old days when you went back and you had all of these vouchers, a room full of boxes of vouchers that you had to reconcile. That's all gone now with Galaxy Connect. We give you a live ticket, direct to gate access. You get more exposures in the markets that you value, and you'll streamline your connections, as we said, with your travel partners or your OTAs. That brings us over to Wanda, who will talk about, and Wanda's our distribution manager, and we'll talk about how Galaxy Connect actually works. Wanda?
Hi, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. It's early in our day, well, really early in Nell's day, but I know you've got a little bit more under your belt, so you're not having coffee like I am probably. So Galaxy Connect, I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into the back end of how it works. Charlie, if you want to click. Thank you. So there's always at least 4 entities involved in a transaction in Galaxy Connect. Sometimes there's actually a distributor and partners that they work with, but let's talk about 4 to make it simple. So if I'm going to give you an example of how it works, and I see there's a couple of people from Get Your Guide, so I'm going to use Get Your Guide as our connected example. So if I go on Get Your Guide's website and I want to buy tickets, for example, at Edinburgh Castle, the first thing I'm going to do is search around on Get Your Guide site, and they're going to expose the options that I have for visiting Edinburgh Castle. And there's probably a calendar involved because they're selling, Edinburgh Castle sells resource managed, we call them capacity managed and Connect products. So Get Your Guide's going to show that calendar to me. I'm going to pick when I want to go. As soon as they have the information they need, they're going to send hold on, back up, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Charlie, if you want to go ahead and click again. So I'm going to go on, and in order to light up the calendar, Get Your Guide is querying through the API. Go ahead, keep going. Give me that whole round for this one. Querying through the API to get real-time list of events and capacities for Get Your Guide. They may cache data in advance, but let's pretend they're doing it real time. So go ahead and keep clicking, Charlie. Your eGalaxy server is giving the response then based on their query. So now Get Your Guide can light up that calendar for me, and I can see what days and times are available for me to go visit. Keep going, keep going. Okay, as soon as I pick my date, then Get Your Guide has enough information to send the booking through Galaxy Connect. They'll send a fairly simple booking request through to Connect. The API adds complexity to that as required by your eGalaxy server. If you've ever looked in your eGalaxy server logs, you know that it's a fairly complex order message. It works very similarly, almost identically to the way the eGalaxy web store works as well. So we're sending that message through. Go ahead and click Charlie. And it's hitting your eGalaxy server. At this point in time, your eGalaxy server is confirming that that inventory still exists. It's writing that order in SQL. It's creating the ticket records, the visual IDs, and responding. The process here from eGalaxy is very similar to print on web if you're using it. I don't know if you could do that before, but you are going to be able to use it now, I think. So it's a different story. So when your eGalaxy server then provides that response, go ahead and click one more time, Charlie. It includes the visual IDs and confirmation of that order that Connect then reformats and sends back to the distributor. They take that data that they receive from Connect, put it on a ticket in some form. So maybe a printed home attached to an email, maybe it's embedded into an app that they manage, maybe it's HTML links, whatever it is, they're providing the ticket then back to the consumer, back to me. And when I visit then, when I come on site with that ticket, again, be it a mobile device or a PDF, it's known right away in Galaxy, just like your system had created it. Click, Charlie. Because in fact, your system did create it. So it's actually known milliseconds before Connect and the distributor know about it. It's that ticket that is presented is still following the access control rules in your Galaxy system. So it's created in Galaxy the same way you create any of your other items. It's following the same access control rules, so it's valid only on the date and time of the event, or it's valid for year from date of sale, or maybe it's Good Friday afternoon and all day Saturday. Whatever rules that you set in Galaxy are the ones that are applied when it's scanned for admission. The other important note is that when you're working with Galaxy Connect, payments aren't going through the API. So you're reconciling with that distributor directly. They're going to send you a payment and the list of orders that were included in that, or you're going to launch an invoice out of Galaxy order entry to them, whichever way you choose to do it. Galaxy Connect is out of the loop for those payments. So, we're not holding credit card data or falling under the PADSS requirements, and we're not sending that data into your system. Okay, Charlie, click. And when we talk about Connect, you'll hear us talk about channels a lot. The channel is that relationship between a single distributor and a single supplier. So that flow that I just showed was the relationship between, for example, Get Your Guide and Edinburgh Castle, Historic Scotland. You can have lots of channels set up with a distributor. This is actually a list of all of the current channels that USS Midway has right now through Galaxy Connect. So they're working with all of these different distributors. Once you've set up one, it's really easy to start setting up more and more and more. Okay, Charlie? So I'm going to pass it off to Chris to talk about, or no, it's Nell. I'm going to pass it off to, she's nodding at me. I'm going to pass it off to Nell now to talk about why you need to get on Galaxy Connect.
Thanks, Wanda. Welcome, everybody. As Wanda mentioned, it's early here in Arizona, Arizona, United States. It's 6:19 a.m., so forgive me if my voice is a little froggy. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why you need it. Why do you need Galaxy Connect in your organization? Go ahead in advance, Charlie. So we came up with 3 main topics for our suppliers when they ask, why do I need Connect? The first one is broad marketing presence, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But I liken Connect to advertising on the side of a bus. If you have a flyer that you want people to see wherever you live, you can go out and hang up some flyers on the side of a post or on the side of a wall, and people that walk by will see that flyer. However, if you want to expand the people that see that, you're going to put that up on the side of a bus. So what Connect does is it allows you to have all these channels with all of our certified distributors, and you're now using or getting the benefit of their advertising. So your expanse has now reached wherever those OTAs go in the world. The second thing is that guests want to purchase online. As Charlie showed us early on, folks want to buy online. They want to use technology to get their tickets. The days of showing up at a supplier or an attraction and standing in line and buying your tickets and then going to another line to get into the attraction with your ticket, those days are gone. Folks want to arrive, they want to park their car, and they want to walk right in the door. That's what Connect gives you. It allows your guests to buy their ticket online, have a live direct-to-gate ticket, and not have to stand in additional lines when they arrive at the attraction. And then you're going to hear a little bit more about post-COVID sales and travel surges. We are seeing folks come back. People want to get out of their houses and go to attractions. So Connect gives you a broader range to sell your tickets and to deal with those post-COVID sales surges. Next slide, Charlie. So what are the benefits of working with an OTA? We do get this question a lot of times. And our biggest thing is it gives you the expanded marketing reach. As I mentioned, you could go out and hang up a couple flyers, but imagine if you could put your flyer on the side of the bus. Now, everywhere that bus goes, people will see that advertisement. What we're seeing is trends in shopping online are the same as trends in shopping in person. I know where I like to shop, so I'm going to go to that store every time. So I go to a grocery store called Fry's. Every time I got to buy groceries, that's where I go to buy my groceries. It's the same with online shopping. When folks are shopping online for regular products, they go to their go-to site, and it's the same with tickets. So your guests are going and want to use one-stop shopping, and they're getting the ability to do that with Connect because it's reaching out to their favorite OTAs. So that's the familiar sites that they're going to. Pay for performance is another strong topic. When you have an arrangement with the OTA, you are only paying them when a sale is made. So you're benefiting from their advertisement, and then you're only making a payment when they make a sale on your behalf. Next slide, Charlie. So benefits of working with the OTAs is one thing, but then adding Connect into that mix just beefs it up even a little bit more. So for you as a supplier, the benefit of Connect is it gives you instant sales recognition because your sales are going through Connect directly into Galaxy. So you're seeing that sale immediately at the time that it happens. You can, in that sense, then go in and run reports anytime you like and get a true live picture of sales that are happening through Connect. And then when it comes to operations in the front of house where your guests are arriving, it gives you the ability to control your inventory because you're still controlling all of that through Galaxy. The guests are arriving. They do not need to take a piece of paper, a voucher, and go to a will call booth, exchange that voucher for a ticket. Your staff no longer needs to issue a second ticket or actually a live ticket because the guests will already have that. And then we no longer have that back of house functionality where someone is sitting in a room sorting out all the vouchers and then using them to reconcile payments at the end of the month. All of that is done directly through Connect and thus directly through Galaxy. So those are just a few of our topics on why you want to use Connect. And at this point, now I think I'm going to turn it over to Chris. No, still no.
Over to Charlie.
Sorry, next slide,
Over to Charlie.
Oh, back to
Before,
Charlie. Sorry about that, Chris. We keep picking on you.
before we go back to Charlie, though, we did have a question come in towards the beginning of your part now.
Okay.
But Matt Taylor did ask, which FOP does Connect use?
Okay. So early on, Wanda mentioned that payments are not coming through Connect. The guest is actually paying the OTA. So the guest can use their credit card, the payment goes through them. When the transaction comes through Connect, you as a supplier have a couple of options. You can create and assign any FOP that you currently use in Galaxy, or you can leave the FOP blank and have the orders come in with no FOP, because your reconciliation with the OTA is going to happen at a later date. It's not happening at the time of the purchase. And actually, Rhonda, do you want to add into that at all?
And so we see people do it both ways. If you want to do invoicing out of Galaxy, then you don't include an FOP in your Connect configuration. The orders come in as unpaid orders, so the tickets have been issued, the order isn't paid, and you can do the Galaxy invoicing process. If you don't do invoicing in Galaxy order entry, then you probably want to pick or create a new FOP specifically for this reconciliation process. We have some of our gateway customers who have a process on the back end that sends data out to another system that they use for accounting for financial purposes. So that works. You know, they set up a specific FOP and that's part of that process. Really depends on how you want to work with it. And Nell and Chris, when you first engage with them, they'll talk through, what it is you do in Galaxy and, help you decide if you have any questions.
Okay.
Any other questions, Greg?
Yeah.
Matt did ask another question, but I'm going to bring that up towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep moving. Thank you very much, Nell. And just to close out Nell's section, why more reasons why to use Galaxy Connect is all of the reopening. Again, we're getting ready for the release of that pent-up demand, the travel, the booking, so on and so forth. This is a scheme in the UK that they're doing where the government is providing government and lottery money to provide vouchers to fund attractions visits. They did a similar thing in Singapore where they gave everyone had access to $50 of value to go to visit the Singapore attraction. So and it did give a good bump to them to help get things moving. But part of this scheme is you'll get discounted rail and bus travel and other things related to getting to the attraction or getting into the attraction. And then some statistics. Again, these are always probably dated the moment you put them up. They're every presentation you see seems to have a different view of the world. But in this one, they're hoping that domestic tourism will recover by the end of 2022. International tourism, a little bit more problematic. It seems like different areas almost become islands. Like in the US, they talk about staycations and traveling within the US. Although they'd like to go to Europe and the UK and different places, probably difficult at the moment, but opening up slowly but surely. Our big IAPA conference in Europe is coming up at the end of September, and everyone is saying they're going there if they have to take a boat to get there. But so that's how excited people in our industry are to get back involved. We probably have done our last virtual event or conference because we've probably done about 100 of them. Also, the EU in the EU they're looking to welcome tourists. New York, California reopen, as you can see there. The EU has their vaccination passport to allow hopefully a freer travel within that area. Also hoping that there's thoughts that like larger venues will help to drive a recovery as well. Disneyland Paris in this case. My sister's 45 years in Orlando, and she said everything is if you looked a certain way, everything kind of looks more normal now. The guests don't have to have masks, so on and so forth. This is in Florida, and again, that helps to drive the rest of the economies or the rest of the attractions. Investing in the future in Ireland, the government putting in 73 million euros to help develop attractions in that area. We're seeing this as well. Even in the depths of COVID, that venues we were still seeing tenders come out. We were still working on projects. Project work was still going on. Again, getting in position for when everything opens up. I think we actually have sold projects where we've never even met the people yet. We've only ever met them virtually, and looking forward to actually visiting the site, even doing implementation, so on and so forth, all remotely. So we're looking for all of that to change, but activity has still continued. Museums are being built and parks are expanding. Which brings us over to how do I get on board Galaxy Connect? And finally, Chris.
My turn. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, so what we wanted to do is address some of the questions that we get asked fairly often about, if this is something that's of interest to you, how would you go about getting on board? How do you get hooked up? It's a little bit different than your traditional Galaxy setup because you're dealing with an API here. And that's where this team comes into play. So Charlie, you can just jump right into the first slide here. You can skip this transition slide and let's go through the actual process. One of the first things that we will recommend to you is to reach out to what we're going to call here your business solutions manager, but it could be somebody like Joe Marshall out of the UK office, if that's who you're dealing with on a regular basis. Of course, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, to Nell, Wanda, Charlie, Greg. We'll certainly be willing to help answer any questions that you might have, whether they're that high level, hey, does it do this type of question, or, you know, who do I contact, what do I do, etc. We'll certainly be willing to walk you through that, or at least help walk you to the right people and through that process. But it all starts with that first discussion, typically with Joe. And what Joe's going to do is he's going to be able to help you talk through what we call the tier, the messaging tier, where you'll select a tier based on the number of bookings or orders that you typically would expect to do with your travel partners. It's not very confusing. It's very easily laid out. We have a lot of diagrams and things that Joe can help you with. But that's typically the first thing that you're going to do. And there's also a contract you'll sign called the Galaxy Connect Supplier Agreement. Once those three things have been done, once you've talked to Joe, had the tier selected, and that Connect Supplier Agreement is signed, Charlie, you can hit the next slide. That's where our team will kick in. That initiates the process within Gateway so that your designated supply partner manager will reach out to you and schedule what we call the kickoff meeting. I'd venture to guess, based on the region that we're talking about here, it's probably going to be myself reaching out, because Nell and I have divided the world to conquer it together, right? So we're all about world domination, and what we've decided to do is that typically I'll handle Eastern US, I'll handle the UK and Europe, Nell will handle the Western US, she'll handle Asia Pacific region, and then we kind of take it from there, right? So typically it'll be me reaching out to you and your team to schedule our kickoff meeting, and that's really where the rubber starts to meet the road. I'm going to encourage you to invite people from various departments within your organization. It's always an advantage to have your typical operations or ticketing team, your system administrator, people that are building tickets, things along those lines. We'll also encourage IT team members to be there, because there are some things we'll have to talk about with your firewall rules, whitelisting IP addresses, things along those lines. I always try to encourage finance team members to be there as well, because this is all well and good, but if finance can't invoice those folks, we're going to have some issues. So we like to get ahead of those problems. We like to include finance from the beginning so that they can have their input. They can help us make the right decisions. They can talk about, whether we should be invoicing this way or that way, right? But we want, and what does reporting look like? They're always going to want to know what the reporting looks like as well. So we can tackle that right from the beginning if we involve the various stakeholders throughout the organization. Does everyone need to be involved in every call? No, not necessarily, but these are really good team members to have in the beginning, so we can talk through those really important decisions that we're going to make and set a solid foundation so we can kind of continue the project seamlessly. During that meeting, I'll provide you with, or Nell as well, Nell or I will provide you with an onboarding form and some documentation, which just goes through the various configurations that are necessary. It's not overwhelming, and on the next slide, I'll show you what some of those things might be, but we're going to provide you documentation that shows what you need to set up in Galaxy, and then the onboarding form is something that you'll provide to us so that we can add the information into the API for you. So Charlie, you can hit that next slide, and let's talk a little bit more in detail about what that really looks like. It's not overwhelming. It's not a lot. There is some work in the eGalaxy server that needs to be done and in your firewall, which is why we encourage some of the IT folks from your organization to be present, at least in those early calls. We'll talk about what are the advantages of using a dedicated eGalaxy server. Do you want to share your eGalaxy server with your web store? A lot of those things, we'll talk through in that initial meeting to talk through the benefits, the pros and cons, if you will, of each. There's a little bit of config that we'll need to do within eGalaxy server, which we'll talk through, and I'll provide, or Nell and I would provide some documentation to you that would, explain all the different configurations that are necessary. And we'll provide you with those IP addresses that need to be whitelisted. And that's simply to allow our environment to talk to your environment. So the messaging can go back and forth, and you can receive those orders and allow those capacity calls that Wanda had talked about earlier to go back to the distributors and your travel partners. Aside from that, within Galaxy, there's not a ton that needs to be done. You will be, maybe you're going to be reusing products that are already in existence. Maybe you're creating new products. Are you going to use sales channels that are in existence? Or are you going to create new ones, right? These are all discussions we'll have during that kickoff call where, we'll spend an hour to an hour and a half talking through all these different configurations and what we might need you to do, or if we can reuse things that are already in existence there. So we'll hit the next slide after we talk through what needs to be done. You'll provide me that onboarding form, and I'll add that into the API for you. At that point, I'll send some tests through as if I was your travel partner. So because we have some friends from Get Your Guide on the call here, I am going to pick on them, right? So if we've decided that our initial integration is going to be with Get Your Guide, I will mimic Get Your Guide, and I will send some bookings through to you in a test environment first to make sure that everything looks good. Are those prices showing up correctly? Is it being associated with the correct customer in Galaxy, etc.? Once that's done, I can port all my changes over into a production environment, and I can do those same tests. And at that point, we'll get the Get Your Guide team involved, and they'll send some tests through as well. So never will you go live until you've received testing from me and from the Get Your Guide team, well, because they're doing this first integration for you. And you'll be able to talk through with their team as well some of the intricacies of that side of the mapping, or that side of the relationship, right? Like, what does your ticket media need to say that's being provided to the guest? What format barcode should be used? Things along those lines. So it's really 3 teams at the end of the day that are involved, and we have a great relationship with the Get Your Guide team. So I know, we have regular meetings with them, so we can kind of talk through, some of the difficulties we might be having, so that you don't even need to worry about things. We could be working on that behind the scenes for you. However, what's great though is once it's all said and done and we're ready to go live, you have the final say. We won't go live until you actually give the go ahead and it's agreed upon. So you'll say, okay, you'll say to the Get Your Guide team, let's go live on August 1st, and then they'll set the products up, everything will be good to go, and it'll launch on August 1st for you. Charlie, can you hit the next slide for me? Once you've gone live with Get Your Guide, that was your first integration there. There are plenty more distributors to choose from. The last time I counted, there were over 80. Here's a small selection. But Charlie, if you can hit the next slide, on our knowledge base, there is a link that you can select that will actually allow you to see on the website, of course, or download a PDF copy of each of the certified distributors, because all distributors, in order to sell your tickets on the Connect network, actually go through a certification process. And if we hit the next slide, I'll let Wanda talk a little bit more about what that looks like, what the distributor side of the relationship looks like. Thanks, Wanda.
Let me take that for a second. Chris, we did have a couple questions come in. So from interest to signing the agreement all the way to that August 1st go live, what's like an average time frame?
I would say the first integration always takes the longest. If you're talking from the kickoff to that go live, I would say it could be a month, truthfully, because there's some decisions that need to be made. In almost every integration I've seen, the first round of testing, there are some kinks we need to work out. The taxes didn't show up right, or the price is wrong, or something along those lines, right? Or the capacity call was pulling from the wrong capacity record, things like that. So a month, maybe a little bit longer for that first one, but that process gets very streamlined pretty quickly, at least in my experience. I know Nell has told me the same for her. So we can get it pretty streamlined after we do the first 1 or 2, and it can get down to as quick as a week or 2. I would say probably 2 weeks for the following or the subsequent integrations. So if we estimate a month or so, maybe a little bit longer for that first one, and then 3 weeks to 2 weeks for the rest should be good. Should be a good estimate.
Great. And Wanda, I'm just going to tee this one up for you already because it came in. So what about if you don't have relationships with distributors, with travel partners?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to add one thing to Chris's comment first, is that when he's talking about the problems, and this applies to the stuff I'm going to talk about next, those are usually things in Galaxy. So it's really easy for Chris to work with you and your Galaxy team to tweak those. They're not things that are a problem with the API or the connection, because we're using those components that exist in your Galaxy environment. So it's just a matter of making sure that they are set up in a way that agrees with the way you want to see stuff happen. So if you aren't, back to the question then that Greg just asked, if you aren't working with any partners right now, certainly talk to our team. is no reason to not move forward. We have really good relationships. So we keep talking about Get Your Guide. It's because we have regular calls with the Get Your Guide team. We talk to them on a regular basis. We do that with a lot of our connected distributors where we're talking to them on a regular basis. We know how they work. They've been with us, some of them several years, more than just a couple of years, that they've been connected and we're working with them. So we can kind of guide you to some of the ones that'll be easy to get started with. They all have different processes and ways to do it, but they're looking for people to work with. So, we can make introductions for you. Again, that list gives you some information, but, we can give you other contacts, if you can't get a hold of the person on that list or whatever. And Nell talked about some of the reasons about why you would work with Galaxy Connect. Those are valid reasons or why you would work with distributors for all of our distribution partners. Okay, any other questions, Greg?
Oh, that's it right now.
Great. Okay, so working with distributors. So that was kind of a good segue into working with distributors. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the technical back end, but again, any questions on just the business process, always ask. Charlie, can you click? And go ahead and click both of those. So there's two ways to get started with Connect. And back to that question, how do you get started if you don't have any partnerships? The easiest way to get started is with those distributors that are already connected. So that list that Chris showed a couple minutes ago, the all of the logos and then the link, look for one that's certified on that list. And, those are the good places to start. They know what they're doing. Typically, a lot of them have been, have a ton of channels already in Connect, so they know what they're doing. They often have online portals where you can sign up. They have people you can talk to. So again, we can help direct you to those if you have any questions. But the second way you can start working with distributors is introduce your preferred OTAs. If there's a distributor, a travel partner, or maybe somebody regional that you're already working with a lot and they're not on that list, they're not connected, then I can talk to them, introduce them to me, work with Nell or Chris if you're working with them, one of those already, and I'll start a conversation. So there's a couple of people on this call that we've already started that process with, where they were interested in working with Connect. They weren't sure which of our gateway customers were already using it. So we're having those conversations already. But definitely, if there's somebody that you're doing a lot of business with, it's an important travel partner for you, introduce them to us and we'll see what we can do to get that connection going. Go ahead, Charlie, click. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background into what I do with the new distribution partners. So let's say you introduce somebody to me and they are interested in moving forward with Connect. The very first thing I'm going to do with them is get the required agreements in place. So there's an NDA, we're sharing confidential technology and information. There's also a distributor API usage agreement that governs the use of the API and our commitments to each other. So this isn't something that our gateway customers have to worry about. This is something that I do with those distribution partners, your travel partners. So we get those agreements in place. I'll hold a technical, either a discovery if they're trying to figure out when they're going to schedule it or the viability of a connection, or we'll do a full kickoff and I'll talk with them and explain how the API works. I'll explain the interactions with your Galaxy system so they understand the differences between a fully cloud-based API and how Connect works with your system. I've been at Gateway for, I can never remember whether it's 13 or 14 years. I need to look it up and write it down. But I started out working with our Galaxy attractions in the Galaxy system. So I've been on site with at Edinburgh Castle and Historic Scotland and different places in the UK and different places in the US and around the world. So I know how Galaxy works. So one of the things that I talk about with distributors is just give them an idea of how that back end works so they understand the flow. We'll do that kickoff. They'll do their integration. So they'll develop against the API. They'll send test messages. I'll help them if they have questions. And then when they're done their integration, they think they're ready to go live. The next step is they must complete our certification requirement. We'll look at test bookings that they've sent, make sure they understand the different types of products, resource managed versus, free sale general admission. I'll look at the messaging that they've sent through the API to make sure that it looks good. Everything looks like it's going to work, so that by the time we introduce them to you and you start connecting, they know what they're doing. There shouldn't be any large outstanding questions. Sometimes there's a few questions with how you want your ticket media, or if there's something that you do that's very unique. Process-wise, one of our customers in Paris, for example, doesn't issue the tickets through the API, so they're hold delivery method, basically. So sometimes those are conversations we have, but by the time we get to step 4 and they're connecting with you, everything should be fairly streamlined and simple. There shouldn't be any big surprises. Okay, and I don't even remember what comes next, Charlie, so go ahead and click. I think it's still mine. So that was kind of the overview of everything that we wanted to talk about, and now we're getting into a couple of closing, which is good because we got 10 minutes left. Year to date, and I checked these numbers out yesterday, we're almost at 400,000 bookings through the API in all of our regions, so all around the world. That's huge, considering that we had a really slow start to the year, right? And there's still some areas that are really just ramping up. We've got a lot of our gateway customers connected already. We found that the ones that started early were the ones that do a lot of business with third parties, but now we're seeing more and more interest from our different gateway customers that haven't worked with third parties. Definitely the last year has illustrated why you want those contactless sales, why you want your venue's name in all these different marketing channels. But everybody's realizing the benefit of that. We have a whole list of distributors that are signed up. You saw that list. You can access it. I keep that up to date. Anytime a new one's certified, I update that list. So definitely keep an eye out on it. And then that combination, if we look back to that graphic that we had for USS Midway and their many channels, we've got getting close to 500 channels through the API of individual partnerships between a gateway customer and a distributor. So we're really seeing an increase. And Charlie, if you click, you can see what's happening in just the EU environment. So the EU environment covers our UK customers, our European customers, and down into Dubai. But we are seeing a big bump. So if you look at the very beginning of that chart, we were doing a good level of business through the API, and then 2020 hit and everything tanked. We had a little bit of a peak, but now we're on a fairly consistent climb back up again. As things start to open back up, people really want to travel. Like Nell said, people want to go places. If they have to go someplace close to home, they're happy to see some of the attractions that are close to them that they may have missed earlier, but they just want to get out and do things. Go ahead and click, Charlie, because I think we are wrapping up now.
Yep, and I have a couple more questions. So this is for whoever feels like they can answer. Do all Connect partners share the same sales channel for on-off sales dates for events and for capacity limits, or can you specify these for each Connect partner?
So those on-off sale dates are controlled by the sales channel, and you set your sales channel on your eGalaxy source. So if you use multiple sources, then you can have multiple on-off sale configurations. Really depends on how complicated you want to go. We see some of our gateway customers that use one source for all their Connect partners, so they use one set of rules. And they might not even apply anything different from what they do from their normal channels, but you have those options.
Excellent.
Yeah, I can add to that also. I have suppliers that do it both. Either they have one set of rules for everyone, and then I have a couple suppliers that do have individual rules per OTA.
Excellent. And do Connect orders go into CRM? That's a great question.
They can. So again, that's a lot of, if you're talking about CRM Plus, it's a lot of how you structure things and how you want. The one note about Connect orders is that the distributor, your travel partner, is the one collecting the data, right? So they're collecting the guest name and whatever information. They send varying amounts of information. The base requirement in Connect is one lead guest for the order. So that's the order contact with either their first or last name. Most of our connected distribution partners send first and last name. Some of them send more information. Some of them choose to send more or less. Some of them are constrained by the way their website works. So they only ever, collect the first and last name outside of the payment process. So they don't have extra information. So that's a conversation we can have with you and then with the distributor to talk about what's possible. I also saw, Greg, that there was a question in chat. I know Sam was asking privately, okay, with an effective API, what's the cost of it for an organization to implement it? Implementation, administration, and support. So I'm not sure. Hold on, where Sam is from that asked that question. It really depends on which side of the organization you're talking about. So for the attraction, it's fairly simple because we're using things in your Galaxy system that already exist that you use for other purposes. So setting it up is pretty straightforward, particularly if you're using the eGalaxy Web Store. So it's really simple to walk through those steps. It's just a matter of making decisions and making sure those configurations then line up with how you want to manage those orders. For a distributor to connect, it really varies on how much it costs them because it's their time. Gateway doesn't charge them anything. The commercial relationship is between the Gateway customer, the attraction, and the travel partner, the distribution partner. So how much it costs a particular distributor will vary based on their infrastructure. I find that the new connection process is anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months for them to get connected. It really depends on how when they start their project and how many people they have working on it. The actual labor hours of connecting are usually not too terribly long. It's the scheduling that can stretch it out a little bit longer. I hope that answered your question. Sam's from Kew Gardens. So for your organization, it should be fairly simple. It's just one more sales channel in Galaxy.
Got another one here. So given the current uncertainty in visitor travel, can transactions purchased be carried over to the next year, or do they expire in 12 months if unused?
That's kind of a two-part question because the distributor is actually owning the transaction, like the financial transaction. So they may or may not have some rules for transactions, but the actual ticket validity is controlled in Galaxy. So however you set up the validity on the back end, the same rules that you apply, when you're setting up your own direct walk-up sales or online sales, those same rules apply. If I were to buy a ticket for Edinburgh Castle to go in, like I want to go to Edinburgh Castle during Fringe, which is in August, right? So I want to go, but then, something happened, say like 2020 happened and we had to change. Edinburgh Castle has the ability to manage that just the same way they could manage their direct online sales if they want to extend the expiration, whatever they want to do, because that ticket was created in their system.
So I have a great answer. I have a clarification on that question, however. How about the tier that you elect into for Galaxy Connect? So if you elect into a certain tier, can you roll over a number of transactions or do they expire?
That is per year. So it's an up to so many transactions a year is the flat cost. And the reason that we have that flat cost is so that you have a number to budget against. So we don't typically roll over, which is one of the reasons why you want to have that conversation about what tier to get in. Personally, I think that if you start with the lowest tier because you're not sure, and then you compare that cost, usually we'll share it looking at the per transaction rate. But even if you just disregard that per transaction rate, if you think about the man hours or woman hours, person hours that go in to maintaining any third-party sales and exchanging vouchers. I have a lovely graphic. I should have put in here a picture I took in the back office of one of our New York City customers a few years back of a pile of vouchers that had to be exchanged. It was literally up to my knees or beyond. just this mountain of stuff and stacks on the floor, and somebody had to process those. So even if you don't get that mountain of vouchers, it's still a significant amount of time. So I think the lowest tier, if that's where you think you need, is a value, even if you're not doing a ton of transactions, when you consider the hours that don't have to be spent in exchanging vouchers and the marketing exposure that you can get by working with as many distribution partners as possible.
So the questions keep rolling in, so please feel free to keep typing them. Can we cancel, reschedule, or reissue tickets, etc., in order entry for Connect bookings? And can the Connect distributor, your partner, cancel orders from their side to reflect the agreed cancellation policy?
I'll answer the distributor part, and then I'll let Nell or Chris answer the supplier part. So from the distributor standpoint, we recommend for our gateway customers, for the attraction, you either enable or disable cancellations across the board on the API. Your Galaxy system manages cancellations, vets cancellations to some extent. So if a ticket has been used, so any ticket in that booking has been used or upgraded, or depending on your settings, if you've done invoicing on that order, things like that, that will block the cancellation. When we talk about managing to your requirements, that's one of the things I always talk to distributors about as they're doing that certification process, is that they need to manage to various policies then, that their partners have. And I think there's a varying ability on their end to support it because of their standards. So, Viator or Expedia may have certain policies. It's one of the things you want to talk to them about when you onboard with them. But then the other part of the question was managing those tickets. Now, Chris, do you want to take that?
Sure. Chris, go ahead. I see you on mute.
Yeah, I couldn't get to the mute button quick enough. Sorry. So essentially, all of these bookings are sent through the distributor's channel through Connect, and it ends up as an order in order entry, like you had mentioned, if I remember the question properly. So once it's in order entry, you can handle that order just as you would any other order. It may come through, depending on your settings, as a secured or a locked order. So that, it might be privilege driven, whether or not you can unlock it and make those changes. That's a configuration. Don't worry, and we'll talk about that if we were to get on a kickoff call or something along those lines. But if you need to, yes, you can return those tickets, cancel them, exchange them, whatever it is that you might need to do, because at that point they are a traditional order that you're more used to.
We'll add on to that, though, that the distributor has the transaction of record. So that travel partner, you want to make sure that whatever you change, is thinking about the status of the order in their system. So often, while a guest shows up and doesn't have their tickets, you can reprint them. If a guest wants to cancel and get a refund, they need to go back to that travel partner, the distributor who sold those tickets in the first place.
Okay. Some of the questions have been coming in privately, so I would just ask Charlie, Wanda, Chris, and I'll just take a look if there's any that came in privately to you. But I'm good on my end. I think we've answered everything. So I do just want to wrap it up and say, if you're a supplier, you're an attraction that's using Galaxy and you want to get on board with Galaxy Connect, reach out to your business solutions manager. I don't know exactly who that is, but it could be Joe Marshall if you're in the UK. It might be Steve Bell if you're based in Europe. But reach out to your business solutions manager, and if you don't know who your BSM is, you can always message Connect Supplier at gatewayticketing.com, and one of the team on the call right now will reach back out to you. If you're a distributor, one of the travel partners on the call, and you don't already have a direct line to someone on the team here, you can always message Connect Distributors at gatewayticketing.com, and you'll get a response, and we can take it forward from there. Again, I want to reiterate, I suppose, as Charlie said, why should you get on board with Connect? Charlie, why is it? Because it's the easiest decision in the world. Was that it?
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
In
it's
the
a
history of all
no-brainer.
mankind.
There you go. So yeah, connect with us with your BSM or one of the email addresses there. We really appreciate the time. I want to thank the team Wanda, Chris, Nell, and Charlie for taking the time to present. I want to thank everyone on the call for attending and asking all the questions that you did. You really make these webinars engaging. I haven't seen any other questions come in, so I think at that, we'll call it a day. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.